DJ and PK. We are joined now by Cole Bagley, Utah Mammoth insider for KSL Sports, brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. How are you, Cole?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Very curious about the trade. First off, do you think they're done? Do you think there's another one?
I think that Utah is going to, stay on the phones. They've, as multiple national insiders have indicated, they've, had their hand in a lot of pies, as one of them put it.
That's gross.
And, based on what I know and the things I'm hearing, I would fully anticipate that Utah's going to try. They have a lot of assets that they can move. They want to continue to get better. They want to add to this roster and not only get into the playoffs, but make some noise. So, I anticipate that they'll stay on the phones. Whether or not they can make some more deals is going to be dependent on can they get players for the right price like they did last night.
So what are they getting in this deal that they've already made, and what are they losing?
Yeah, MacKenzie Weegar, 32-year-old defenseman. He's been in the league since about 2015, 2016. He's just a really kind of a true defensive defenseman. He plays with physicality, grit. He's reliable. He's versatile. He's got, he's strong, and he wore an A in Calgary, so he's got some leadership. And I think just looking to improve defensively. He blocked 143 shots so far this season, which was a Calgary Flames team high. He was second in hits for the Flames with 130. So, and he had about 21 points in 60 games. So, just a really reliable, well-rounded veteran D-man who's going to come in and jump into the top four on the blue line. So, I think they got good value. Oli Mata had kind of played his way out of the lineup. Him and the front office weren't exactly seeing eye to eye in terms of playing time. And, I would argue that it was good for them to kind of offload that contract. He was making $3.25 million a year, and that's a lot of money to pay for a healthy scratch. So it was good to see him, move on, and he'll go to a place that he can get some playing time. And then, a young prospect that is not even, his name's Jonathan Castagna. I wouldn't even consider him in the top 10 of Utah's deep prospect pool. So, you're not really missing anything there. And then 2026 second-round picks, which sounds like a lot, but, for Utah, they still have 7 picks in the draft, 1 in the first round. So, I think, for Calgary, they're kind of starting a rebuild process. They need to offload some of their older players, and, they got some more draft picks for them. And then for Utah on the other end, they're trending the other way, kind of starting to emerge from that rebuild. So it's good to get some more veteran leadership amongst the defense.
So Castagna was caught up in a numbers game there, and there was just no way, well, not no way, but there was very little chance he was going to emerge. Given they're trying to win, they can only integrate so many young guys at a time. So when I read some of the national reviews, it was like basically Calgary got the most that they were likely to get for him, but at the same time, the Mammoth left themselves positioned if they want to make another big deal. They didn't give up any of the big prospects. Or they could just play it as it is, see how this year goes, and have the young guys develop and just keep rolling. So it seemed like it's very little risk, and there's got to be some upside, and maybe there's more than a little upside. But that remains to be seen. Is that about right?
Yeah. If I was going to grade the trade on both sides, I'd probably give Calgary an A-. They probably got as much, like you said, as much as they were going to for a guy like Weegar. And then for Utah, they are so rich in prospects and assets that, this is a trade that's not going to keep you up at night about giving up too much. Those second-round picks are not necessarily worthless, but next to. And to only have to give up a guy that you wouldn't even consider in the top 10 of the pool to get a defenseman as good and reliable as he is, is a big deal for Utah. I'd probably give him a B or maybe a B plus, but probably just sticking with a B. I think the one thing that you don't necessarily love about this deal is he's got 5 years left on his contract, and he's 32 years old, so he's going to be 37, pushing 38 by the time he comes off the books. But it is what it is, and they needed to make a move and make some noise, and we'll see kind of where they go from here over the next 24 hours.
A lot of our listeners can equate basketball trades in that, it takes depending on the player, at least a game or two, maybe a little bit more to find his way, to fit in with relative to the team and all the concepts that they're trying to accomplish. Tell us about hockey in terms of getting a player here in the back portion of the season coming in. He is a veteran, so he certainly knows how to play. But how long do you think the adjustment period is before he feels comfortable completely?
Yeah, it's probably the same, probably a couple games. Some guys can come in right away and, squeeze right in and figure things out. But for Utah and Calgary, two very different teams with different goals. This is a guy who's been, regarded as one of the top probably 15 to 20, true defensemen in the National Hockey League for a couple of years. And, this year he's struggled a little bit, but it's more of a reflection of, Calgary in the fact that, they're just kind of a defensive nightmare. Their goaltending is not very good. And so, his plus minus isn't great, but I would anticipate that, as he comes into a system that's playing differently, that's, got a lot more talent on the back end and certainly has a lot more talent amongst their forwards that, he'll figure it out. But in terms of his timeline, he's Canadian, and due to the need for a visa, Bill Armstrong said that it could be 4 to 10 days before we, see him suiting up for Utah. So we'll probably see Nick DeSimone continue to fill in for Utah. They did call up Dmitry Simashev this morning just to make sure that they have an extra body. So, yeah, we'll see exactly when Weegar jumps into a Mammoth uniform. But as experienced as he is, as good as he is, I wouldn't suspect that it takes more than just a couple games for him to figure things out and build some chemistry.
Looked him up on his playoff stats. He does have some playoff experience from his time in Florida before he went to Calgary, about 20 playoff games. How much does that matter, and how much would this matter in this postseason to have a defenseman? Sergachev obviously has some postseason experience. How much does that matter?
It matters a lot. This is a roster that the vast majority of these guys have never made the playoffs, right? I mean, all of their younger players, the Coolies and Gunthers and Peterkas, and then even some of their, more veteran forwards, guys like Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz have very little to no playoff experience. And so, it's just a move like this, continues to signal that, Utah is making significant strides in their rebuilding process. Rather than selling for prospects and draft picks as they've done, over the last 5 years, they're on the other side. They're looking to reward their team and build to win and add guys with playoff experience. And even though it's only 20 games, I mean, he at least is, knows what it takes to get there and what it takes to compete and what it takes to win. So, yeah, it's, it obviously would be better if it was, probably, twice as many or 3 times as many games. But the fact that he's got, 20 under his belt and, he's been in that atmosphere is going to, I think, do wonders for this team, if they're able to get in.
You make moves with the intent to improve your team, obviously. That's the whole goal. And for sometimes it is, down the road. And in the case of this one, it seems like it's immediate. With that in mind, how weak were they at the position that he will play? Because obviously they want to address it and improve.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say weak per se, but certainly a position that could be improved, right? I mean, if you look at, there's 6 guys back there, Sergachev is a phenomenal defenseman. Dursey is good. John Marino, Nate Schmidt have been, one of the best defensive pairs in terms of plus minus in the entire league. And then, Ian Cole is just a workhorse. He's a true seasoned vet. With multiple Stanley Cups and, tons of playoff experience. I think where they're lacking and where this is really going to help them is, kind of that final spot, which they've had guys rotate through, right? They've had DeSimone, they've had Oli Mata, they've had Dmitry Simashev, Maverick Lamoureux. It's kind of that final spot. Now, I don't anticipate that Weegar is going to fill in on that bottom line. I would expect, Bill Armstrong said last night multiple times, he is a top 4 guy. And so Weegar's going to come into one of those top 2 lines, once he joins the team, which gives Utah an opportunity to bump one of those players currently in the top four down to that third pairing, which only bolsters the majority of the defense. So not to say that they were weak by any means, but there was certainly some room for improvement. And I think, what Weegar does is he really solidifies every single line for Utah defensively.
As you look at the other guys, is there somebody that he obviously would partner well with, or somebody he obviously would not partner well with?
Yeah, that's going to be tricky for the Mammoth. As I said, I anticipate he'll be jumping into the top four, but where do you put him exactly? Do you really want to split up John Marino and Nate Schmidt, who have just been this perfect yin yang, as Schmidt describes it? Their games complement each other so well. They give up very few goals, and they're very anchored defensively. And then in terms of the top line, you're not going to bump Mikhail Sergachev from the top line. So what I would anticipate is that Weegar's going to come in. I would imagine that Sean Dursey is the one that's going to get bumped, but does he get bumped all the way to the third pairing, or do they decide to mess with that second pairing? That remains to be seen. But I think based on his game, like I said, he's a very defensive-minded D-man. He's going to block a ton of shots. He's going to deliver a lot of hits. He's going to play physical, and he can contribute offensively. He's got 21 points. He's got 3 goals, 18 assists. And so, if it was me, I would insert him on the top line alongside Sergachev. I think that would be a complementary pair. I'd keep John Marino and Nate Schmidt together, and so that would result in Dursey being placed on the third line with Ian Cole, which could be positive. Dursey is more of a offensive-minded defenseman, so I think that could definitely boost and raise Utah so that they're more balanced all the way down.
If they do make any more moves, what are you thinking they're looking to add?
Yeah, I think I would imagine that they're looking to add a top 6 center. There was a lot of rumors that had them heavily interested in links to Robert Thomas out of St. Louis.
Yeah.
I'd imagine after, the fact that they were able to get Weegar for the price that they did, and as, we talked about earlier, they still have a lot of their top prospects and top assets. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they make another, attempt to go and get him before tomorrow's deadline at 3 p.m. on the East Coast. And then, another area that would really benefit them would be to find a backup goaltender. Vejmelka's been good this season. There's been certain stretches where he's been superb. But the fact that they clearly do not trust Vanacek, between the pipes unless absolutely necessary, that's a problem. Coming down the stretch, you don't want to tire out Vejmelka. Obviously, he played, I think, 24, 25 games in a row, to conclude the season last year. But that, if you really want to make the playoffs and you want to, spend as much time in the postseason as possible, you don't want a goalie that has to, carry that kind of load. So I think a backup goalie, would be a good area for them to improve, and we'll see, what they're able to accomplish. But as I said earlier, I just don't think that they're done. I think that they're, based on what I know, I think they've been very active, and they'll continue to be active over the next day.
Are you in Philly?
I am.
So Geno's or Pat's?
I haven't. I got in last night, so I just had to quickly DoorDash, some fast food. But this afternoon, I do have an opportunity to go experience a little bit more of Philadelphia.
Run the steps and play in your mind. Dun 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 dun.
I was there, and there's actually a kid with a trombone who was over there, and you tipped him a little bit, and he'd play that. But he played the wah, wah, wah for the people who didn't make it to the top, which is a little amazing. You'll make it to the top. It's not that hard. You don't have to be in that good a shape. You can do it.
Well, where's the best cheesesteak? Where do I go?
You got the Pats or Geno's. Those are 2 famous ones, and I think the Pats one, it was filmed with in the Rocky movie where he's over right there. So, and they're right across the street from each other. Just ask anybody; they'll be able to tell you where to go.
All right.
It's a long walk though, so you'll have to Uber if you're going to do the steps and that. They're in opposite directions.
Yeah, but you're eating a cheesesteak. You want to do the long walk.
You do. You got to walk it off. All right. Good luck with that, Cole. That's the truly important stuff, and then the game follows.
Sounds good, fellas.
Okay. Cole Bagley, Utah Mammoth insider for KSL Sports, joining us from Philadelphia, where the Mammoth play tonight. Stop number 2 on their 5-game road trip. Coming up next, Tim Lacombe joins us, Jazz analyst for SEG Media. We'll run the question of the day past him. How many of the Jazz going to win in the last 20? And what can he do for the local college teams? Everybody's backing up. That's next. Stay with us.